Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Monday, June 20th, 2022. And we do this each day on behalf of a unique partnership with Alaska Public Media. And if you would like additional weather information on top of what I provide, you can go to weather.gov online. You'll come to an interactive point-and-click map of the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii off to the lower left. And when you click on the map, it'll give you forecast, watches, warnings, advisories for anywhere in the country. You can check up what the weather is like for places where friends and family live. And there's all sorts of other information that you can glean from this map. As of this Monday afternoon, we have heat advisories and excessive heat warnings out across areas of the upper Midwest, along with severe thunderstorm watches for northwest Minnesota, southeast South Dakota, and South Dakota. Also flood watches across New Mexico, potential for some heavier rainfall associated with showers and thunderstorms. So all kinds of interesting things there. But here for Alaska, we are seeing a cooler and wetter pattern across the southeast interior along the northern and northeastern Gulf Coast into the Panhandle, bringing wetting rains. And then the interior, scattered showers and some wet thunderstorms. When we say wet thunderstorms, yes, there is such a thing as a dry thunderstorm. That's a storm that produces little, if any, rainfall, can be very detrimental for when it comes to high fire danger because it creates those lightning strikes. Some of these storms, though, could put down a good half to over an inch of rainfall at times, especially in the east central interior as we go through the day today. But summer solstice is just hours away. It arrives at 1:14 in the morning, Alaska Daylight Time, this Tuesday. And it's definitely going to get summer-like around here. We have a drier and much warmer stretch of weather coming up, building from the southwest through the south-central areas of the state. A ridge of high pressure is going to take hold through the latter half of this week into the weekend, pushing temperatures into the 70s and 80s. I would not be surprised that somewhere isolated 90-degree reading pops up. Well, again, summer solstice arrives several hours from now at 1:14 in the morning, Alaska Daylight Time. It is the time of year by which we have the greatest length of daylight. Obviously, if you're above the Arctic Circle, the sun never sets. But for those of us south of the Arctic Circle, and especially if you go down the lower 48, it is going to be the greatest extent of daylight. And looking at the FAA webcams across the state in the northwest, AKwx is at sunny and 70 degrees, warmest day so far there this year. Anvik in the southwest, you can see partly cloudy skies, still a haze there from some of the ongoing wildfires that are occurring in the region. Temperature as of early afternoon approaching 70 in the upper 60s. And then as we go further southeastward here to the south end of the Kenai Peninsula, Homer, skies are beginning to clear off toward the west and northwest. Cloud cover remains with showers out over the Gulf. Temperature there 55, and then crossing the Gulf, Craig has cloudy skies with occasional light showers and fog and a temperature of 54, and those showers extend up and down along the Panhandle, along the Gulf Coast, and up into the southeastern interior. If you didn't catch this yesterday, as of June 18th, over 1 million acres of forest and tundra have burned in Alaska, and this is the earliest date for this to have occurred in the past 32 years when we have 1 million acres consumed in a fire season. So very noteworthy, and as I said, the fire danger is going to be creeping upward here later this week and over the weekend. Right now, more wet thunderstorms for the interior, southwest Alaska. I mentioned the wetting rains, especially Copper River Basin, southeastward into the Panhandle. And there could be some gusty winds over 20 miles an hour in northwestern Alaska, but also they're seeing some warmer temperatures in areas there, especially across the western North Slope and Brooks Range. The outlook is for afternoon and evening thunderstorms to continue across the central and eastern interior through the midweek. And as far as overall, though, the big story is drying and warmer temperatures setting up for the southwest and south central areas of the state as we go through the end of this week through the weekend, and that warmth is going to be spreading eastward into the panhandle as well, especially over the weekend and early next week. And a check of the fire danger, it is most significant there in the middle Yukon Valley, but again, very dry conditions persist even up through the Matsu Valley. This fire danger is partially based on, it incorporates the rainfall potential, so that's what's kind of tampered this down a bit. This is going to be going up notably, though, here. Watch it over the next several days, especially as we get into later this week. You'll see it really come back up across the southwest and south central areas here by Friday and over the weekend. Meantime, we have low pressure weakening out over the Gulf. You can still see that counterclockwise spin. There's another little low pressure wave and some moisture south of AKwx off to the west. We have weak lows along the Russian coast, and overall a ridge of high pressure. Surface high pressure is down around Dutch Harbor, tip of the Alaska Peninsula. This feature is going to build northeastward as we go through the midweek and end of the week, and that's what's going to allow drier conditions. Skies are going to tend to want to clear out more. It'll suppress cloud development, shower and thunderstorm development, especially across the southwest and central interior as we go into the latter half of the week. So this afternoon, weakening low pressure over the central Gulf, a trough just kind of sitting there along the panhandle coast, keeping occasional showers, areas of lower clouds and fog going. Back through the interior, scattered showers and storms. As I mentioned, some of these storms could put down a quick half to an inch of rainfall, especially there through the east central interior, 40-mile Gold Country going up the Tanana Valley or the upper Yukon Valley. We also have storms scattered back toward the middle Yukon Valley and the south side of the Brooks Range. Further west, fog and lower clouds along the western coast. Bands of rain with a low pressure way out there in the western Bering Sea, and overnight still low pressure there in the Gulf will be weakening. Weak trough lags across the northeast part of the state. Tuesday, just a weak trough lingers from the eastern Alaska Range down along the Kenai and Kodiak Island. We will see a potential for some more scattered showers and storms popping up with daytime heating, but back toward the west, still some areas of haze and smoke from the ongoing wildfires that are occurring in the interior. Areas of rain along the lower Chukchi Sea with fog and lower cloud cover, and then that high down there in the eastern Aleutians is really going to start to build northeastward as we go through mid and late week. Wednesday, you see that high gathering strength coming up to a 1034 surface high. If I could show you the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, it would show it building northeastward into the mainland, and that's really going to allow things to heat up here for later this week and over the weekend. Low temperatures Tuesday morning are going to be down into the 40s. Few areas could stop around or just above 50, such as in Anchorage, but otherwise high temperatures should be getting back up near 70 around Anchorage, 76 at Talkeetna, 60s in through the Kenai, 50s still though across the panhandle with some lingering showers. Wednesday morning lows again 40s, though Anchorage Bowl may not get much below the low mid 50s, and then warming up at least 75-ish in Anchorage and 78 to near 80 in areas of the Matsu Valley. Definitely some 80-degree readings plus heading that way for later this week and over the weekend. Across the north and the Yukon River Valley, upper 40s, lower 50s, 30s along the Arctic and northwest coast, as well as the northern Seward coastline, and then 80-degree reading popping up there Tuesday afternoon around Fort Yukon with 70s and 80s. Low temperatures again, 30s along the northern coast and western coast, but 40s and some lower 50s, especially the eastern interior, with 70s fairly widespread there north of the Alaska Range in the normally warm spots. Now, looking at the southwest, we do anticipate lows generally in the 40s tonight, lower mid-40s out along the Aleutians. And then Tuesday afternoon, starting to see some temperatures bump back up around or a bit above 70, but still generally holding in the 60s. But then Wednesday morning, we'll see lows in the mid-upper 40s to even near 50 across the southwest interior. And we should start to see some temperatures getting back up around or even a bit above 70 on the west side of the Alaska Range. That's where the most noted warming will be. And looking at the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for June 26th through June 30th, centered on the 28th, we see the greatest potential, the greatest anomaly for above to much above normal temperatures over south central Alaska, centered on the Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound, the Kenai Peninsula, including Anchorage. We could see much above normal temperatures, 70s and some 80s, and dry conditions. We're not anticipating much in the way of rain, and that's not good either because that's going to enhance the fire danger with those warm temperatures and dry conditions occurring across much of the southeastern two-thirds of the state into the northern panhandle. So keep that in mind if you're planning on any outdoor recreating this weekend.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, let's check out your aviation weather. If you have a flight planned Tuesday into Wednesday, main weather feature, weakening low pressure over the eastern, northeastern Gulf, just kind of to a trough with lingering showers across areas of the Panhandle, northeastern Gulf Coast, and VFR conditions there. Isolated storm could persist eastern Brooks Range down to some of the hills there around Fairbanks, and then broad area of IFR conditions along the west coast from the lower Chukchi Sea Bering Strait to along the southwest coast and into the central Bering. And coming up this week, ridge of high pressure is going to be building from the eastern Aleutians across the Alaska Peninsula northeastward, and that's really going to allow things to dry out and warm up southwest, south central areas. We're going to be back up in the 70s to even some 80s by the time we get into the upcoming weekend. But before then, we'll still have some scattered showers and storms across, especially the central, east central interior, down along the Alaska Range, even down in the Talkeetna Mountains, areas of the Copper River Basin. Lingering showers Tuesday afternoon across areas of the northeastern Gulf and Panhandle. Widespread IFR along the west coast, again from Seward Peninsula, Point, say, Hope southward all the way down along the southwestern coast and the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula. Wednesday morning, rather extensive VFR conditions across the interior mainland. Still MVFR there, the northeastern Gulf Coast and Panhandle, but again, widespread IFR conditions, especially along the west side coastal areas of the west side of the state. Wednesday afternoon, once again, we could see scattered showers and storms redeveloping, and we expect those from the upper Yukon River Valley there along the Alcan border, down through the mid-upper Tanana Valley and along the Alaska Range into the Talkeetna Mountains, Copper River Basin. Past conditions on Tuesday, Anaktuvik Pass, VFR becoming MVFR with an isolated thunderstorm possible in vicinity of the pass. Same thing for Adigan Pass. There could be an isolated storm in vicinity, otherwise VFR becoming MVFR. Further south and west, west arm of the Alaska Range there, VFR conditions, but an isolated thunderstorm is not out of the question there in vicinity of the passes. Same thing as we round up through Rainy Pass, VFR conditions, an isolated storm possible. Windy Pass, VFR conditions, isolated storm could pop up, especially south side. And Isabel, MVFR conditions becoming VFR with an isolated storm in vicinity of the pass. Same thing for Matasta Pass, maybe more general, MVFR conditions with an isolated storm possible. Doesn't matter whether you go north or south or through the pass. Tanita, also an isolated storm possible in the vicinity of the pass on Tuesday with MVFR conditions becoming VFR. Portage Pass will be a split. VFR on the west side, MVFR on the east side, especially out over Prince William Sound with an isolated storm possible north side of that pass. And then Chilkoot and White will continue to see MVFR conditions with lingering light showers. And looking at freezing levels are lowest along the northeastern Gulf Coast to just off the northern portion of the Panhandle there in the Gulf, associated with that weakening area of low pressure at or below 4,000 feet. Freezing levels aloft rise up to 8,000 feet plus across the interior along the Yukon Valley. This is going to be increasing as that ridge of high pressure builds northeastward from the eastern Aleutians up through the Yukon Valley as we go through later this week and over the weekend. In the meantime, greatest threat of icing will be in the vicinity of the northern Panhandle, where there's lingering showers. There could be some moderate icing there. Otherwise, look for the potential for isolated to widely scattered storms from areas of the eastern Brooks Range, Yukon Flats, southward through the Alaska Range into the Talkeetna Mountains and Copper River Basin. And then jet stream level winds, low pressure circulation there right along the at 30,000 feet along coastal areas of the Panhandle, 110 knot max well south there in the North Pacific Gulf interface. As we come down to 9,000 feet, we look westward. We have a broad belt of 40 to 50 knot winds at 700 millibars or 9,000 feet there along the west coast. And then coming down to 3,000 feet, we see that broad belt of winds continuing around 40 knots, extending from the northwest Arctic coast through the lower Chukchi Sea, Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, down to between St. Lawrence Island and the lower Yukon Delta, back toward the central western Aleutians. And this translates to an area of considerable moderate turbulence possible there from the Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula at surface to 4,000 feet, and also from around St. Lawrence down through St. Matthew, surface to 3,000 feet.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, and joining us once again is our good friend Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska. Thanks again for joining us, Eric. We really appreciate it, as always.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks. And, you know, we're going to ask you some more satellite questions here, but, you know, since you're a regular guest, we're going to give you a riddle this time, kind of a trick start to the show. How do you see a polar bear in a snowstorm?
Sounds like a challenging question, because the polar bear is white and the snowstorm is white.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Well, in the world of satellite meteorology, you couldn't, because the spatial resolution of this instrument that we're going to talk about today has 375 meters resolution, and even the most well-fed polar bear will not be 375 meters across.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't want to run into such a creature, would you? In the satellite meteorology world, the equivalent would be, how do you tell the difference between clouds and then an area that has no clouds but's covered by snow, a piece of ocean that has no clouds but has sea ice? All three of these are white. The snow, the clouds, the sea ice, it's all white. So how, using satellite data, can you tell someone where the clouds are and where the clear areas are? This is important for aviators. Mariners want to know, in the ocean there, this white stuff, is that sea ice or is that just a cloud? How do we tell the difference? And it turns out, if you look, say, at a picture of Alaska from the springtime, March or April, and it's high noon, so we're getting a lot of sunshine. If you were riding on a satellite with your human eye, look down, everything's white. And we've got you know, a picture of Alaska from early April, and we're seeing some of the lower elevations in south central Alaska are melting out, getting some brown ground there, but otherwise there's a whole lot of white on the image. What areas are cloudy, but what areas are clear and covered by snow or ice? It turns out that if we leave the visible spectrum behind a little bit, see, a satellite has multiple channels in the electromagnetic spectrum that it can look at. Part of that's visible light, what we see as humans, but there's a lot going on at other wavelengths. If we add in something that's called near infrared, what we couldn't quite see, but we're getting into that infrared territory, there's a magical property that we can exploit.
Secrets to find.
Oh yeah. This is actually powerful and almost magical, that at a slightly longer wavelength, when the sun shines down on Alaska and then it bounces off back to the satellite, at that near infrared wavelength, it turns out that snow and ice will absorb that wavelength, but liquid water, like liquid droplets in a cloud, will reflect it back. And that's not the way it works in visible. You know, visible, it just bounces off of all those targets the same. But at near infrared, snow and ice absorbs it, and the liquid will reflect it back. Liquid cloud droplets will do that. And so an image where everything looks white suddenly becomes colorful. And the way this recipe works is that the clouds look pink, and the snow-covered ground and the ice-covered ocean look blue. Suddenly now, we're able to see the polar bear in the snowstorm. We're able to see where the clouds are and where the snow is and where the ice is. This is a powerful advantage. Consider the case zooming into the Bering Strait area. What if you were asked to brief a pilot who wanted to fly, say, from Kotzebue down to Savunga or Gamble, and had to fly VFR, visual flight rules, so they had to stay out of the clouds? Could you use a satellite image where everything is white to provide that pilot any guidance?
It'd be pretty tricky.
Very tricky. And that's why we have to go to this other recipe where the all-white polar bear in the snowstorm becomes more colorful. And now we can tell the pilot, aha, this is a cloud you want to stay out of, but over here, sure, it looks white in the visible spectrum, But what we're doing, we'll show you, oh, this is just snow-covered ground, but it's clearing, so you can fly right through there. Visual flight rules. Same thing for a mariner who might want to get down to St. Lawrence Island, say, but has to avoid the sea ice. This product has applicability there as well.
Wonderful.
It's an amazing new technology, so many new channels. The satellite that makes this imagery actually has 22 different channels that it looks at.
22 secret decoder rings.
22 secret decoder rings.
Okay. You know, I liken this to an activity I had in the car when I was growing up. We go on long car rides, and we do all the work in these activity books to, you know, stay calm, cool, and collected for our parents who are trying to get us across the state. But to get the answer, the real answer, you had to apply that red sheet to see the answer or the secret path or whatever the message was in that activity book to get you onto the next page. And it's also like a photography filter, right? If you're taking a lot of pictures, you can apply different colors to see different parts of that image. I mean, that sounds a lot like what you're talking about.
Oh, you know it. The information is in there all along. We just have to combine the channels in a way to reveal what's in there. And by the way, you're dating yourself. So you didn't have an iPad in the back of the car?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, we have, lastly, for dessert, there's a great image of the same kind of recipe. We're looking at South Central Alaska the first week of January. In first week of January, the sun, even at noon, is really low on the horizon, barely up. And in this image, the fun thing is the shadow of Denali. We can see the shadow of Denali over a lower pink cloud deck.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And Denali at 20,000 feet casts a big shadow. So this is another, just for fun, kind of application here. This is called multispectral satellite imagery, and it's the future. And happily, the future is now.
Oh, that is fascinating. And 22 different secrets that can be revealed from just one satellite tool that's floating overhead. Eric, thanks so much for joining us again. We can't wait to have you back and telling us more secrets of satellite technology that are passing over us every single day, many times a day, over Alaska and helping us all the way in many different parts of our lives. So thanks so much for joining us again.
Well, happy to be here.
All right. And thank you for staying with us. We'll be back with a little more weather here in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll have more Alaska weather facts anytime online.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back to the show, and now it's time to look at the marine weather. And starting with the sea ice edge, the Chukchi Sea continues to see the ice melt away and really open up. Ice continues to also melt away south of the Bering Strait along the Russian coast, as well as on the east side of St. Lawrence Island, and we do expect the ice to continue to further break up and melt off, especially along the central and eastern Arctic coast between AKwx and Katowice. Now that we are approaching and into the summer solstice, looking across the southeast panhandle, lingering light rain showers in the area. Winds will be southeasterly, 10 to as high as 20 knots up there through Lynn Canal with waves 2-3 feet Ketchikan, Petersburg, but as much as 3 or 4 feet around Lynn Canal. And then the outer Gulf Coast, winds will be westerly, turning more northwesterly as you get up north of Gustavus toward Yakutat, and waves 4 to 6 feet. On Wednesday, the inner channels will see a mix of winds, north-northwest, Petersburg down toward Ketchikan, 15 knots, waves a few feet. South winds to 20 knots and 4-foot waves in Lynn Canal. And then back out along the outer Gulf Coast, west to northwest winds, 15 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet. Across the northwest Gulf, winds will be variable in the vicinity of central and northern Cook Inlet, as well as Prince William Sound, only around 10 knots with waves a couple of feet. Strongest winds, look for westerly winds, 20 knots there at the entrance of Cook Inlet and off of Kodiak with waves of 4 to 5 feet. On Wednesday, variable winds continue around 10 knots in Prince William Sound and off the Kenai with waves 2 to 3 feet, but west to northwest winds 25 knots through Cook Inlet entrance down to just north and northeast of Kodiak with waves running about 5 to 6 feet. For Kodiak Island, winds will be out of the west-southwest 20 knots, waves around 5 feet, becoming variable south of Sand Point, and then westerly winds 15 to 20 knots from Bristol Bay down to north of Cold Bay with waves of 2 to 4 feet. And across the region on Wednesday, winds will be west-northwest 15 to 20 knots, waves 4 to 6 feet on the Gulf and North Pacific side and around 4 feet on the Bering side. For the eastern Aleutians on Tuesday, winds will be variable at 10 knots with waves running 2 to maybe as much as 4 feet, turning more southerly as you get out toward the central Aleutians, 20 to 25 knots, waves around 6 feet either side, turning southeast to east across the western Aleutians with 6 to 7 foot waves. As low pressure approaches, strongest winds will be in the vicinity of between Adak and Kiska, with 35 knot southeasterly gales and waves building to 14 feet south of the western Aleutians. Otherwise, the eastern Aleutians will see variable winds beneath high pressure around 10 knots and waves 2 to 3 feet. Along the west and southwest coast, look for winds out of the south-southwest to 25 knots. Waves 4 feet in Norton Sound, but as high as 8 feet as you get south of St. Lawrence Island through St. Matthew and down toward St. Paul and St. George. And again on Wednesday, winds will generally be out of the south-southwest with 15 to as high as 25 knots south of St. Lawrence Island. Waves 4 feet in through Norton Sound and 5 to 7 feet out over the open waters, especially west of Nunavik Island. And then through the lower Chukchi Sea and the Bering Strait, 25 to 30 knot southerly winds, waves running 6 to as high as 8 feet. Ice in place with some movement likely along the central and eastern Arctic coast, Utqiagvik toward Katovik. And then on Wednesday, winds will be continue southerly around 25 knots through the Bering Strait and lower Chukchi Sea. Southerly winds along the Arctic coast to 15 knots, again with some movement of that ice there, as well as additional melting now that we will be through the solstice. And looking at the surface weather map, the Gulf low weakens, weak trough, lingering showers there linger across portions of the Kenai back into the Panhandle. Fog, low clouds along the west coast with scattered light precipitation, mainly in the form of a little bit of light rain or sprinkles. Wednesday's weather, high pressure builds across the eastern Aleutians and tip of the Alaska Peninsula. That will extend up through the mainland as we go through the rest of the week, allowing for drier weather, much warmer temperatures setting up across southwest and south central Alaska. I would anticipate temperatures in the inland areas getting back up in the 70s and 80s as a result of this building high pressure. So that wraps it up for our show on this Monday. Thank you for watching, and be sure to join us again tomorrow evening.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.